I'll never forget the moment my sister Michelle's face went pale at my brother Timothy's wedding. There I stood, in a designer dress that cost more than her monthly rent, my hand intertwined with my husband Richard's, the man she didn't know existed. Behind us stood our 6-year-old twins, looking like something out of a magazine. But it wasn't my appearance that made her stumble backward into the decorative fountain. It was the man walking toward us with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. My father, Wayne Randall, the man Michelle told everyone was dead. The man she said wanted nothing to do with me. The man whose supposed rejection she used to justify paying my fiancé $50,000 to leave me and marry our cousin instead. Yeah. You heard that right. Before I tell you how everything unfolded that day, I need you to do something. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever been underestimated, or if you've ever wondered whether staying silent or speaking up is the right choice, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to share isn't just my story. It's for everyone who's ever been told they weren't good enough. And trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Don't let this be just another video you scroll past and forget. This story might change how you see your own situation. My name is Camille Randall, and 6 years ago, I was a completely different person. I was 22, fresh out of community college with a degree in graphic design, living in a cramped studio apartment in Richmond, Virginia. I was working 2 jobs, one at a printing shop during the day and waitressing at night, just to make ends meet. But I was happy. No, I was more than happy. I was in love. His name was Michael Sachs, and I thought he was my forever. We'd been together for 3 years. He was handsome, charming, and he had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. We were engaged, planning a small wedding we'd been saving for, penny by penny. Nothing fancy, just us, close family, and friends at a small venue by the lake. My family situation was complicated. My mother, Angela Randall, had passed away when I was 19 from cancer. It had been just her and me for most of my life. She never talked about my father. Whenever I asked, she'd get this distant look in her eyes and change the subject. All I knew was that his name was Wayne, and according to her, he'd left before I was born. After Mom died, I reconnected with her side of the family. That's when I got close to my half-sister, Michelle Davis. She was 8 years older than me, already married to a man named Bob, with a comfortable life in the suburbs. We shared the same mother but had different fathers. Michelle's dad, Robert Davis, had died when she was young, and our mother had apparently had a brief relationship with my father afterward. Michelle took me under her wing, or so I thought. She introduced me to our younger brother, Timothy Martinez, who was 20 at the time. His father, Carlos Martinez, was apparently another one of Mom's relationships that didn't work out. Despite our different fathers, Michelle made sure we all stayed connected. She'd host family dinners, remember our birthdays, and always seemed to know what was going on in our lives. Looking back now, I realized she wasn't being nurturing. She was gathering information. My cousin Sarah Purcell, Michelle's first cousin from her dad's side, was beautiful. Like Hollywood beautiful. Long auburn hair, green eyes, and a body that turned heads everywhere she went. But at 25, she was also a complete disaster. She'd burned through 3 engagements, had a gambling problem that had drained her trust fund, and was generally known in the family as someone who couldn't commit to anything, jobs, relationships, responsibilities. But Michelle adored her. They were more like sisters than cousins. 3 months before my wedding, things started getting weird. Michael started working late more often. He'd come home smelling like expensive perfume, not the drugstore stuff I wore, but the kind that came in heavy glass bottles from department stores. When I'd ask about it, he'd say a client had hugged him, or he'd been in a meeting with his boss who wore too much fragrance. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. Michelle started acting strange too. She'd call me at odd hours, asking detailed questions about Michael. What time did he get home? How was our relationship? Had we been fighting? At the time, I thought she was just being a concerned big sister, maybe making sure I wasn't rushing into marriage. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were my short days. I got off the waitressing shift at 9 instead of midnight. I came home to our apartment and found Michael sitting on our second-hand couch, his head in his hands. The engagement ring I'd saved 6 months to buy him, a simple silver band, was sitting on the coffee table. "We need to talk," he said. Those 4 words. They're never followed by anything good, are they? "I can't marry you, Camille," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry. I thought I could, but I can't." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "What? Michael, what are you talking about? The wedding is in 3 months. We've paid deposits, sent invitations." "I'll cover the costs," he interrupted. "I'll pay you back for everything. But I can't do this. I don't love you the way you deserve to be loved." I was crying now, ugly crying, the kind where you can't catch your breath. "Is there someone else?" The pause before he answered told me everything. "Yes." "Who?" I whispered. "Sarah. My cousin Sarah. The woman who'd been at our apartment for dinner just 2 weeks ago, who'd congratulated us on our engagement, who'd hugged me and told me how lucky Michael was to have me." I don't remember much of the next few days. I stayed with Timothy, who'd just gotten his own apartment. He was furious, wanted to confront Michael, but I begged him not to. I was embarrassed, heartbroken, and I just wanted to disappear. Michelle called constantly. "I'm so sorry, sweetie," she'd say. "I can't believe Sarah would do this. I'm not talking to her. You're my sister." But something felt off. Michelle loved Sarah. They'd been inseparable since childhood. The idea that she'd cut her off completely seemed wrong. 2 weeks after the breakup, I went to pick up the last of my things from the apartment Michael and I had shared. He'd moved out, was staying with Sarah apparently. The landlord, Mrs. Dominic Purcell, no relation to Sarah, just an unfortunate coincidence in names, met me there. "I'm real sorry about what happened, honey," she said, unlocking the door. "Young people today don't know what commitment means." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying. "Though I gotta say," she continued, "it's strange. That sister of yours seemed to know it was coming." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. "What? Your sister? Michelle? She came by about 4 months ago, said she was checking on the place for you. Asked me a lot of questions about Michael, about when his lease was up, whether he'd ever talked about moving. Seemed real interested in his business." My stomach dropped. "She came here? To our apartment?" "Yeah, brought a beautiful red-haired woman with her." "Your cousin," she said. They looked around, chatted with Michael for about an hour. I thought it was sweet, your family being so involved. I barely remember thanking her. My mind was racing. 4 months ago. Michelle had brought Sarah here 4 months ago, a month before Michael started acting weird. I tore through the apartment, looking for, I don't know what. Evidence? Proof that I wasn't crazy? In the back of the bedroom closet, in a box of Michael's old college stuff, I found it. A contract. Printed on official-looking paper with a law firm's letterhead I didn't recognize. It was a payment agreement between Michelle Rebecca Davis and Michael Christopher Sachs. $50,000, paid in 2 installments. The first $25,000 upon successful termination of engagement to Camille Angela Randall. The second $25,000 upon marriage to Sarah Elizabeth Purcell within 6 months of termination. I read it 3 times. Then 4. Then I sat on the floor of that empty apartment and I screamed. My sister had paid my fiancé to leave me and marry our cousin. The attached document was even worse. It was a letter, in Michelle's handwriting. "Michael, I know this seems drastic, but you have to understand. Camille is not strong enough for the life you could have. She's always been fragile, always needed taking care of. Our mother coddled her, and now she expects the world to do the same. Sarah, on the other hand, is vivacious, connected, and her family has resources that could help your business grow. You'd be doing Camille a favor. She needs to learn that life isn't a fairy tale. Besides, she's not like us. Her father abandoned her before she was born, didn't even want to know she existed. She has rejection in her DNA. She'll never be confident enough to be a real partner to someone like you. Sarah can give you the life you deserve. And Camille? She'll find someone more her speed eventually. Someone with lower expectations. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it and left. I need to pause here for just a second. If this story is hitting you in the chest, if you're feeling that anger rising up for me, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me about a time someone underestimated you. Because that's what this is really about, being underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because what happened next? Michelle never saw it coming. None of them did. And you deserve to see the look on their faces when the truth finally caught up with them. I didn't confront anyone. I know that's what you expected me to do. Storm into Michelle's house waving the contract, show up at Michael and Sarah's engagement party and expose them in front of everyone. But I didn't. Instead, I did something that confused everyone. I thanked Michelle. I called her the next day, my voice steady. Michelle, I've been thinking. You were right to be concerned about my relationship with Michael. I think I wasn't ready for marriage. I was too dependent on him, too needy. I'm grateful it ended before I made an even bigger mistake. The relief in her voice was palpable. Oh, Camille, I'm so glad you see it that way. You're so young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You've always looked out for me, I continued, each word carefully chosen. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what big sisters are for, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Over the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly. I went to family dinners and congratulated Sarah and Michael on their engagement with a sad but accepting smile. I let Michelle give me pep talks about being strong and independent. I nodded when she suggested maybe I should take a break from dating and focus on myself. And in private, I planned. First, I quit both my jobs. Michelle thought I was having a breakdown. Camille, you can't just quit. How will you pay rent? I have some savings, I lied. I need time to figure out who I am. What I actually did was cash in every favor I'd ever earned. I called Robin Wade, a girl I'd gone to community college with who'd moved to California and made it big in tech. We'd been close once, and she'd always told me I had talent that was being wasted in Virginia. Come to San Francisco, she said when I explained I needed a fresh start. I can get you an interview at my company. Junior designer position, but it pays 3 times what you're making now. I sold everything I owned, packed 2 suitcases, and bought a one-way ticket. I didn't tell my family I was leaving until I was at the airport. I sent a group text, I need space to heal. I'm leaving Virginia for a while. Please respect my privacy. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Michelle called 17 times. I didn't answer. San Francisco changed my life, but not in the way you might think. Yes, I got the job. Yes, I was good at it. Within a year, I was promoted to senior designer. Within 2 years, I was leading a team. But the real change happened when I met Richard William Martinez. No, not related to my brother Timothy Martinez. Different Martinez family entirely, though the shared last name would become a funny coincidence later. I met Richard at a design conference. He was there representing his family's investment firm, looking for creative talent to help rebrand their portfolio companies. He was 32, kind, and when he smiled at me, I didn't see pity or dismissal. I saw respect. We started as friends. He'd take me to nice restaurants, and I'd tell him about growing up with nothing. He'd share stories about the pressure of family expectations. His father, Amari Martinez, had built an empire and expected Richard to maintain it. The thing about being underestimated, Richard told me one night over sushi, is that it gives you something precious, the element of surprise. 6 months later, he proposed. Not because someone paid him. Not because I was convenient. But because he loved me. We got married in a small ceremony in Napa Valley. The only person from my old life I invited was Timothy. My brother had stayed in touch despite Michelle's attempts to poison him against me, and he was genuinely happy for me. You deserve this, he told me at the reception, tears in his eyes. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. I got pregnant with twins on our honeymoon. Richard was over the moon. His family, traditional, wealthy, but warm in ways I'd never experienced, embraced me completely. His mother, Callie Martinez, taught me about investments and helped me start my own design consultancy on the side. His father treated me like the daughter he never had. When our twins, a boy and a girl, were born, I named them after my mother, Angela and Wayne. Yes, Wayne. Named after my father. Because 3 months into my pregnancy, I'd done something I'd been too afraid to do my entire life. I hired a private investigator to find him. His name was Wayne Randall, just like my mother had said. But everything else Michelle had told me was a lie. He didn't abandon my mother. He didn't even know I existed. Wayne had been a young Marine when he met my mother. They'd fallen in love fast, too fast, according to him. They dated for 4 months before he was deployed to Iraq. When he came back 8 months later with PTSD and a medical discharge, my mother was gone. Her family had moved, left no forwarding address, and she'd never responded to any of his letters. He'd tried to find her for years. Eventually, he assumed she'd moved on, maybe married someone else. He'd moved to North Carolina, gone to therapy, started a construction business that eventually grew into a successful contracting company. He'd remarried a woman named Callie, yes, same name as my mother-in-law, another strange coincidence, and they'd built a good life. But he never forgot Angela Randall. When the private investigator showed up at his door with my information, he broke down crying. I have a daughter, he kept saying. Angela had our baby? We met at a coffee shop in Charlotte, North Carolina, halfway between Virginia and where he lived. I was 4 months pregnant, scared, and convinced he'd reject me. Instead, he stood up when I walked in, took one look at me, and said, "You have your mother's eyes." We talked for 6 hours. He showed me pictures of my mother from when they were young. She looked so happy, so different from the tired, sad woman I remembered from my childhood. He explained that Angela's mother, my grandmother, had been controlling and religious, had disapproved of Wayne because he wasn't from their church. She must have told her family she wanted to keep you, Wayne said, and they must have made her choose between me and staying in the family. She chose you. She always chose you, Camille. It reframed my entire childhood. My mother's sadness, her reluctance to talk about the past, her fierce protection of me, it all made sense. She'd given up the love of her life to keep me. And Michelle had known. Had to have known. Wayne explained that after Angela died, he tried to find out if she'd ever married, if there were kids. But Angela's family, including Michelle's father, who Wayne had met once, had closed ranks. No information, no nothing. Michelle knew about you, I told him. She's my half-sister. Same mother. His face darkened. Did she tell you I didn't want you? Worse. She told me my father abandoned my mother when he found out she was pregnant. That you wanted nothing to do with me. Wayne stood up so fast he knocked over his coffee. That's a goddamn lie. Sorry, excuse my language, but I would have given anything to know about you. Anything. From that day forward, Wayne was in my life. He flew out to California for the twins' birth. He walked me down the aisle at my vow renewal. Richard and I did a bigger ceremony for family once the babies were born. He became the grandfather my children deserved. And he had money. Not billionaire money, but his contracting company had done very well. When I told him about my design consultancy, he became my first investor. Within 3 years, my company had 15 employees and contracts with major tech firms. Within 4 years, Richard and I had bought a beautiful home in Pacific Heights. Within 5 years, I was on the board of 2 nonprofits and regularly featured in design magazines. And Michelle had no idea. None of them did. Timothy called me out of the blue on a Tuesday. We'd stayed in touch, but I'd kept my new life largely private. He knew I'd gotten married, knew about the twins, but I'd been vague about details. "I'm getting engaged," he said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "To the most amazing woman, Camille. Her name is Robin." My heart stopped. Robin Wade? Wait, you know her? Turns out, my college friend Robin had moved back to Virginia 2 years ago for family reasons. She'd met Timothy at a charity event, and they'd fallen in love. Small world. "The wedding is in 6 months, Timothy said. "And I need you there, Camille. I know you've been staying away from the family, and I respect that, but you're my sister. Please." "Is Michelle involved in planning?" I asked carefully. "She's tried to be," he admitted. "But Robin doesn't really like her. Something about Michelle giving her weird vibes. Michelle's invited, of course, and so is Sarah and Michael. But Robin made it clear this is our day, not a family reunion." Sarah and Michael. They'd actually gone through with it, gotten married about a year after I left Virginia. According to Timothy, it was a disaster. Sarah's gambling problem had only gotten worse, and Michael's business had tanked. Apparently, it turns out that marrying someone for their connections only works if those connections actually help you, and Sarah's family was too busy bailing her out of debt to invest in Michael's failing ventures. "I'll come," I told Timothy. "But I'm bringing my family." "Of course. I can't wait to meet Richard and the kids officially." And, Camille? Michelle doesn't know this, but I found out about the contract. My blood ran cold. "How?" "Sarah got drunk at a family Christmas 2 years ago and told me everything. She was feeling guilty, I guess. She said Michelle convinced her it was for the best, that you weren't cut out for marriage, that Michael would be better off with her. She said Michelle paid Michael $50,000. Timothy. I didn't tell Michelle I knew. But I stopped trusting her. And I've been waiting for you to come back and show everyone what you've become. Because I know you, Camille. You didn't just run away. You built something. And I want to see the look on Michelle's face when she realizes how badly she underestimated you." The wedding was at a beautiful estate in Charlottesville, Virginia. Robin, knowing my story, had arranged for us to arrive just after the ceremony, during the cocktail hour. That way I wouldn't have to sit through awkward stares during the service. Richard parked our rented Escalade, a far cry from my old beat-up Honda Civic. Our twins, now 6 years old, looked like they'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren ad in their custom outfits. Richard wore a Tom Ford suit. And I wore a midnight blue silk dress that cost more than I used to make in 3 months. But the real showstopper? The man who got out of the car behind us. Wayne Randall, my father, in a sharp gray suit, beaming with pride. I debated bringing him. Richard had been the one to encourage it. "They told you he didn't want you," Richard had said. "Time to show them the truth." We walked into the reception area together, me, Richard, the twins, and Wayne. Timothy saw us first. His face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen, and he abandoned the receiving line to rush over to us. "You came." He hugged me tight, then pulled back to look at Richard and the kids. "And this must be the famous Richard and the twins." Angela and Wayne, I introduced them. "Kids, this is your Uncle Timothy." "And this," Timothy said, turning to Wayne, "must be, wait. Wayne? Wayne Randall, my father said, extending his hand. Camille's father. Timothy's eyes went wide. He knew the story, knew what Michelle had said. But Michelle said a lot of things, I replied softly. Not all of them were true. That's when Michelle spotted us. She was talking to Sarah and Michael near the fountain when her gaze landed on me. I watched the recognition dawn, then the confusion, then something close to fear. She started walking toward us, and with each step, I could see her taking in details. My dress. Richard's watch. The way my father's hand rested protectively on my shoulder. The twins' obvious good breeding. Camille, she said, her voice uncertain. Oh my God, Camille. You came. She moved to hug me, but I stepped back. Michelle. You look the same. It wasn't a compliment. While I'd grown, evolved, transformed, Michelle looked worn down. Her dress was nice but not expensive. Her jewelry was costume. And there was something in her eyes, a hardness that came from years of manipulation and control. I can't believe you're here, she gushed, trying to recover. And you brought your family. This must be Richard? Richard Martinez, my husband said, his tone polite but cool. He'd heard all the stories. Nice to meet you. Martinez? Like Timothy? That's funny. Different family, Richard said smoothly. Common name. Michelle's eyes went to my father. I could see her trying to place him, the confusion growing. And this is my father, I said clearly. Wayne Randall. Dad, this is Michelle. The color drained from Michelle's face. Your father? Yes. We reconnected about 5 years ago. Turns out he didn't abandon my mother after all. In fact, he didn't even know I existed until I found him. Isn't that interesting? Sarah and Michael had joined us now. Sarah looked rough, years of gambling and bad decisions showing in the lines around her eyes. Michael had gained weight and lost most of his hair. They both seemed diminished somehow, like life had beaten them down. Camille? Sarah whispered. Is that really you? Hello, Sarah. Michael. Michael couldn't meet my eyes. You look great. Thanks. Marriage and motherhood agree with me. I pulled my children forward. These are my twins, Angela and Wayne. Kids, say hello. They were perfectly polite, perfectly poised. Years of being raised in Richard's world had given them a natural confidence. Michelle was staring at my father. But you. Angela said you didn't want anything to do with the baby. Wayne's jaw clenched. Angela's mother said that. Angela never had the chance to tell me anything. She died never knowing I spent 22 years looking for any trace of her. But you. Michelle looked between us, her mind clearly racing. You moved. Changed your name. My mother moved because her family made her choose between the man she loved and staying in the family, I said. You knew that, Michelle. Your father knew that. He was there. He helped convince her to leave Wayne. The crowd around us had grown quiet. People were listening now, including Robin, who'd come to stand with Timothy, her hand in his. I don't know what you're talking about, Michelle said, but her voice shook. Don't you? I pulled out my phone, opened to a scanned image of the contract. Should we talk about this? Michelle's eyes went to the screen, and I watched all the blood drain from her face. You paid my fiancé $50,000 to leave me and marry Sarah, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent courtyard. You told him I was too weak, too fragile, too damaged by my father's rejection to ever be a good partner to anyone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camille, please, Michelle started. You told me my entire life that my father didn't want me. That he abandoned us. You made me believe I was unlovable because rejection was in my DNA. Those were your words, weren't they? Tears were streaming down Michelle's face now. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? My voice rose. You destroyed my engagement to help Sarah. You lied about my father to keep me broken. You wanted me to stay small and dependent so you could feel superior. That's not true. Michelle sobbed. You don't understand. Then explain it, Wayne said, his voice hard. Explain to my daughter why you convinced her that her own father didn't love her. Explain why you let her grow up believing she was abandoned. Michelle crumpled. Because she wasn't supposed to be happy, she screamed. Because Angela chose Wayne over her family, and it destroyed everything. My father never forgave her. He died still angry that she picked some nobody Marine over her own family. And then she died, and Camille got everything, all the sympathy, all the attention, all the poor motherless girl treatment. Nobody cared that I lost my aunt. Nobody cared that my father had died angry and bitter because of her choices. The silence was deafening. So you punished me, I said softly. You punished me for being born. For being the reason my mother left your family. You ruined everything. Michelle was hysterical now. And then you had the audacity to be happy. To find love. Meanwhile, Sarah, perfect Sarah who'd never done anything wrong, couldn't keep a man. It wasn't fair. So you paid Michael to break my heart, I finished. To make sure I'd be as miserable as you wanted me to be. Bob, Michelle's husband, was staring at her with horror. Michelle, what did you do? I gave Sarah a chance. Michelle turned to him desperately. I helped her. And I helped Camille too, she wasn't ready for marriage. She needed to grow up. Looks like she grew up just fine without your help, Timothy said quietly. The wedding reception was awkward, to say the least. Michelle left in tears, Bob following her with a shell-shocked expression. Sarah and Michael slunk away shortly after. Apparently, their marriage had already been on the rocks, and this public revelation of how it started was the final nail in the coffin. But the rest of the evening? It was beautiful. I danced with my father, my husband, my brother. I watched my children play with other kids their age. I reconnected with aunts and uncles who'd known my mother, who shared stories I'd never heard. And I talked with Robin, my old friend who was now going to be my sister-in-law. I knew there was something off about Michelle, Robin said. She kept trying to give Timothy and me advice about relationships. Said that sometimes love isn't enough, that practical considerations matter more. Now I understand why. She believed her own lies, I said. Convinced herself that what she did was for the best. Do you forgive her? I thought about that. No. But I don't hate her anymore either. She spent 6 years thinking she'd broken me, and instead, I built a life she couldn't even imagine. That's justice enough. Wayne came over, my daughter Angela riding on his shoulders. Camille, honey, Richard wanted me to tell you your nanny just texted, Wayne Jr. needs his inhaler. Oh, did I mention? I'd named my son Wayne Jr. My father had cried when I told him. As I walked away to call the nanny, I overheard my father talking to a group of my mother's old friends. 22 years, he was saying. 22 years I thought she'd forgotten me. But she named our daughter Angela Camille. Camille was my mother's name. She never forgot. And neither did I. It's been 6 months since Timothy's wedding. Michelle sent me a letter. I haven't opened it. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't. Sarah and Michael got divorced. Last I heard, Sarah was in rehab for gambling addiction, and Michael was living with his parents, working at his dad's hardware store. Timothy and Robin are deliriously happy. They visit us in San Francisco regularly, and my kids adore them. Wayne has become a permanent fixture in our lives. He and Richard bonded over their love of golf, and he takes the twins every summer for a month. My design firm just signed a $10 million contract with a major tech company. Richard and I bought a vacation home in Lake Tahoe. We're talking about having another baby. But more than any of that, I wake up every morning in Richard's arms, with my children's laughter echoing through our home, knowing that my father is just a phone call away, and I feel loved. Not because I proved Michelle wrong. Not because I got revenge. But because I built a life based on the truth, I was always worthy of love. My mother knew it. My father knew it. And now, I know it too. Michelle tried to write my story, told me I was too broken, too damaged, too much the product of rejection to ever be truly happy. She tried to make me believe that I needed to stay small. But here's what I learned: the people who try to keep you small are the ones who are afraid of how big you can become. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about what happened to a girl from Virginia who was told she wasn't good enough. Here's what I need you to do: subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Because there are so many stories like mine out there, stories of people who were underestimated, who were told they'd never amount to anything, who proved everyone wrong not through revenge, but through sheer determination to build a better life. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Leave a comment telling me about a time you proved someone wrong. Who was it that underestimated you? How did you show them they were wrong? And most importantly, if someone in your life is trying to keep you small, trying to convince you that you're not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough, don't believe them. Build your life anyway. Surround yourself with people who see your worth. Find your Wayne, your Richard, your Robin. Because the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living so well that their opinion doesn't matter anymore. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.